Aviation law in India is organized into two distinct layers. At the foundation is the Aircraft Act of 1934, the primary legislation passed by Parliament to control the manufacture, possession, and operation of aircraft. The Aircraft Rules of 1937 are derived from this act, serving as the detailed operational manual for day-to-day enforcement and civil aviation activity. The 1934 Act sets the baseline for jurisdiction. It extends to the whole of India and applies to every Indian citizen, regardless of their location across the globe. This jurisdictional reach includes specific categories often tested in certification. Clauses C and D specify that the Act governs aircraft registered outside India while they are in or over Indian territory, as well as aircraft operated by non-citizens who maintain their principal place of business or permanent residence in India. Because the Aircraft Act of 1934 functions as the primary legal framework for Indian airspace, every operator and aircraft within these categories is subject to the specific safety regulations and penalties that follow. To enforce these standards, the central government holds overarching power under Sections 10A and 11A of the Act. These sections authorize the imposition of penalties for safety contraventions where no other specific punishment is provided. The consequences for willful non-compliance are severe. Failing to follow Section 5A safety directions carries up to 2 years imprisonment, a 1 crore rupee fine, or both. Additionally, Section 10B provides administrative enforcement, allowing the central government to immediately suspend or cancel a pilot's license or certificate for any rules contravention. However, the Act also establishes legal protections under Sections 17 and 18. Pilots are granted immunity from ordinary civil lawsuits for trespass or nuisance, provided the aircraft is flown at a reasonable height and the flight is conducted in good faith. Understanding this penalty structure allows a pilot to identify the exact point where operational decisions transition into legal liabilities. While the 1934 Act provides the power, the Aircraft Rules of 1937 provide the instructions. Rule 1 establishes an important distinction. For foreign registered aircraft, the regulations of their home country govern registration, licensing, and airworthiness, rather than the Indian rules found in Parts 4 through 9. For aircraft registered in India, Rules 6, 7, and 7B mandate that specific documents must be on board for every flight. This includes valid pilot licenses, aircraft registration, and the cockpit checklist specified by the Director General for that aircraft type. Rule 17 addresses documents that are not required to be kept on board. If a magistrate or authorized officer demands to see these records, the license holder or owner has exactly 7 days to produce them for inspection. Ground conduct is equally regulated. Rule 13 prohibits taking any photograph at a government aerodrome or from an aircraft in flight without written permission. As highlighted here, that permission must come specifically from the Director General or an authorized deputy. These administrative rules create a standardized operating environment, ensuring that documentation and ground conduct meet a uniform legal requirement before an aircraft ever leaves the taxiway. Flight safety is governed by Rule 21, prohibiting any person from flying an aircraft in a manner that causes unnecessary danger to people or property, specifically citing low altitude and proximity to dwellings. There is a critical exception found in Rule 161-2. If a pilot is forced to fly low due to thunder showers or other weather conditions, it is classified as an unavoidable cause, providing a legal defense against a dangerous flying charge. Rules 22 and 23 address conduct on board. They prohibit assault, intimidation, or interference with crew members, as well as intentional damage to property or the consumption of substances that jeopardize the safety of the aircraft. Rule 24 enforces a strict physiological limit. No crew member may consume alcoholic drinks, sedatives, or stimulant drugs within 12 hours of the commencement of a flight, and they must have 0 detectable blood alcohol while on duty. Rule 24A governs the carriage of passengers with mental disorders or epilepsy. They must be certified as fit to travel by a registered medical practitioner. Furthermore, if the passenger has been in a state of excitement requiring sedation in the previous 2 weeks, they must be accompanied by an escort. These regulations represent a zero-tolerance standard in aviation law. Any violation results in the immediate termination of license privileges and initiates criminal prosecution. A private pilot license is legally distinct from commercial ratings, Rule 38A explicitly forbids flying an aircraft for any form of remuneration or hire. License validity is tied to medical status. Under Rule 42.2, if a pilot is incapacitated by sickness or injury for 15 days or more, they are prohibited from exercising license privileges until declared fit by a fresh medical examination. Professional record-keeping is a legal requirement under Rule 67A. Personal logbooks must be preserved for 5 years from the date of the last entry to ensure a verifiable history of flight experience is available for inspection. These specific timeframes, 15 days for medical recertification and 5 years for record preservation, are the administrative requirements that keep a license legally active. Finally, the rules define geographic limits through Schedule I prohibited areas. These are locations where flight is restricted or banned entirely to protect sensitive sites or respect local requirements. One such area is the Towers of Silence on Malabar Hills in Mumbai, which maintains a prohibited radius of exactly 1 mile. Other sites use larger 10-kilometer radii, but with different vertical limits. The prohibition near the Kalpakkam nuclear site extends up to 10,000 feet, whereas the area near Bhubaneswar restricts flight up to 50,000 feet. These operational rules are backed by the maximum penalties of the 1934 Act. For example, depositing rubbish or slaughtering animals within 10 kilometers of an aerodrome, actions that directly cause bird strikes, is punishable by up to 3 years in prison and a 1 crore rupee fine. Mastering the DGCA syllabus requires more than memorization. It requires internalizing the legal matrix that ensures safety in the air and compliance on the ground.